Comes in handy. So I got raspberries, strawberries, and dark cherries. And I ran all three of them with the lavender just to see which one tasted the best. And this was the clear winner. Raspberries paired very well with the lavender.
Because she has an Emery Thompson at home.
I don't. So the cherries just didn't cut it. The strawberries were very, very sweet on their own. So it overpowered the lavender. And you would have to put in so much lavender, and that's a little overkill. So the raspberries were a perfect pair. I also like to buy the frozen fruits and then letting them thaw and then give it a good squish with my hand. Don't need to puree it, don't need to anything. And as they thaw, it makes its own sweet natural juice in there, so that helps add to the flavor. I don't have the recipe, so what's the first one? Okay.
Here, I will give you a recipe card.
I like letting them shout it out to me.
Well, that's good too.
Do you prefer Trani over like Monin or
Whom?
Monin? I see you have like Monin syrup over there. Like, do you prefer Trani or?
Jeff, those were yours. What do you say?
You know, Tirani, when we first opened, we had a cappuccino bar, espresso cappuccino, and people wanted flavors in their cappuccino or coffees. So I found Tirani, and I think Tirani is great. They have now over 100 flavors. Monin has been up and coming, and now they have some flavors. They have some unique flavors. Cookie butter, you know, remember the cookie butter we made? Speculoos.
Yes, speculoos.
The Monin has great flavors. I'm still a fan of Tirani, but Monin at the store because there are some flavors that are great. If you're making butter pecan ice cream and you get Tirani butter pecan, beyond belief. It went, and that's all that's in there. Cream and Tirani butter pecan and then some candied pecans. And that became our #1 seller and has been for a long time.
And if you just need a bottle or two, you can buy it right on Amazon. Otherwise, I assume you go to Webstron.
I buy by the case. Restaurant Depot sells it, and I get cases from there. But if you just want single bottles or whatever,
they have it.
Well, no. See me later.
So I like to add the sugar to interrupt everybody.
All right.
Into the water. Jeff doesn't do that. He doesn't really care.
I have no regard for the machine.
Yeah, he doesn't. So it's not necessary, but we recommend it because sugar acts like sandpaper when you pour it into the machine. So over time, it'll start to wear down your blades. So instead of replacing them every 3 to 5 years, you can let them go about 4 to 6 years by just giving it a light little mix. So I got my 2 pounds of sugar, 3.5 quarts of water, and then, what is that, 20 ounces? And then the raspberries. Great. Then I am not going to. I'm gonna pull a Jeff, guys. I know this is 25 ounces, so I'll eyeball 5 ounces. Oh, I was gonna pour that in there first.
It's really hard not to make a glug, glug, glug sound.
Yeah.
You read my mind. Glug, 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 glug.
What do you think? A little more?
No, I think, okay.
Well, taste it first before you kill it. What? Okay.
All right.
Is it required to put like
You want to pass it around,
and like on the
smell it, look at
on
it.
the ice creams? I mean,
Not on your retail, no. The question, in case the camera didn't pick it up, do you have to put ingredients list on your ice cream? Not in a retail ice cream parlor. If you're going to wholesale it to someone else, and they're going to resell it in their delicatessen or bodega, then you are supposed to put the ingredients. But the laws have been made to be a little bit laxed. We all know that Coca-Cola is a secret formula. So the law says Coca-Cola doesn't have to list all the ingredients in their product. So you can have a label that says milk, cream, sugar, skim milk, natural and artificial flavorings. That protects you from giving away that you're using Torani or the cheap Tia Maria instead of the good stuff. So you're protected there by those words, natural and artificial flavorings. People like to, I was always against labeling because it's a pain in the neck, but everybody reads labels. And the funny thing is, we'll read a label on, what's on, this Boston cream pie that we shouldn't be eating. We read the ingredients and then we go ahead and buy it anyway, even though we know it's 1,000,000 calories because it's what we want. No matter what that label says, we're going to buy it if we want it.
No, like it's mine said required.
I'm sorry?
Is it required? You said not. Okay.
You don't have to. Not on retail.
What if you make pints? You sell pints.
What about pints?
If you sell pints, do you need to put ingredients, or it goes the same way?
If you're going to sell the pints in your own store, and I'm going to walk in and grab a couple of pints and take them home, you don't have to label it. Because that's no different from an ice cream cone. It's just a different container. You bought it at my store. If I sell my pints to Christi's Delicatessen, then and you take it home, you're buying it from Christi, then it's got to be labeled.
You'll get it eventually.
And since everybody reads labels, it's worth doing. Rush Limbaugh once came up with a slogan for Snapple. It was a drink from years ago, and he coined the phrase "made from the best stuff on earth." And so that was not only their advertising campaign, that's what they put on their ingredient label, which was really funny. And then they added, the rest of what's in there: water, caramel coloring, stuff like that.
So this is sugar, water, fruit, and the lavender syrup. Can somebody read that bottle for me and tell me if it has sugar on that? It's sitting in front of you. I don't know how much sugar content is that, but we did 2 pounds of sugar. We had raspberries, which is a natural sugar, so you're probably going to do about 12, 13 minutes just to get this to freeze. Now, another thing about that too is we had that sit for a little bit, so the cylinder got warmer. Now, if I was to do these batches back to back to back to back, you're not looking at 12 minutes for every single batch. Your very first batch of the day that you run, it's going to take about the normal expected time. Now, if I was to go right back in with another batch, it's going to take about a minute, minute and a half off of your time because your cylinder is still super cold, so it's still freezing. Another thing too is when you're extracting your product, even though you turn off your refrigeration, at least for another 30 seconds to a minute, it's still going to freeze. So if you feel that you're 30 seconds off from being done, go ahead and shut the refrigeration off and start to extract it because it's still freezing. And you'll also notice the back end of the ice cream is a lot thicker than what's already been coming out in the front because it's still freezing. And we can add more into this because it is sugar water. There's no dairy, there's no fat, so it's not going to expand. So it's a 6-quart machine, but we can put 4, 4.5, up to 5 quarts after we add the fruit's worth of liquid in there because it doesn't expand.
Now, the compressor, once you shut off the compressor, is there a delay to turn it back on? A safety delay for compressor?
The compressor, when you shut it off, it's going to keep running for about 30 seconds, and there's Freon gas up here, and it's pumping it back down into what we call the holding tank or receiver. So that process takes a little bit of extra time. So you're still getting, when you shut that switch off, you're still getting a little more refrigeration.
Correct, but you don't like that.
Can you turn the compressor off, and after you hear it go off, can you turn it right back
Yes.
on?
If you turn it right back on, it may not come right back on.
That's why I'm
because
asking.
the cylinder is so cold, it may not call for it. And I can't think of a reason why you would want to turn it back on after you turn it off.
If you hit it by an accident, you know how AC works, you shut off the AC and the compressor takes time before AC kicks
Well, the
back on
compressor will
again.
kick on and off even when you're not running anything because it is a pump down unit. So you'll hear it kick on and then kick off. And then even though it's not running, you'll hear it kick back on and then kick back off again.
But the reason we're turning it off in the first place is because the product's ready. If the product's not ready, don't turn it off, just let it go another 30 seconds to a minute.
These machines are not like the conditioner at home in that regard.
I don't think I get that.
So it is
Whatever he
ready,
said.
so it shall be done.
Whatever he
That's our tech, by the way, who's in there recording. So if you ever call with a technical question, that's the guy you hear.
Yeah.
That's the guy you talk to.
That's Mike.
Yeah.
AC systems at home have about a 5-minute delay from reset. Just there's not.
Okay.
There you
5
go.
minute delay.
5 minute delay.
5 minutes.
No, we don't. As soon as it warms up, it's going to come on.
Do we need the voltage stabilizer for that machine?
Not if you have stable voltage. Yes, we have electronics in here that we have to have steady voltage coming into it. It's got a decent range. It's 208 to 240. But if you're constantly having low voltage, you could have a problem because as the voltage drops, all the motors and compressors heat up. So you want to have, the only time here that I can think of that being a problem would be in a truck, concession truck with a inexpensive generator that isn't producing a steady voltage. Otherwise, it's really not a problem. But if you're in a remote part of the world, yes, we need fairly stable. Not as stable as a computer or anything sophisticated like that, but it still has to be within a range of stable.
So
Yes, sir.
you need where I'm planning to put this machine, the power is not stable at all. So I don't.
That would, let us know what the parameters are, and you can write to Mike at emerythompson.com or any one of us, and we'll turn it over to Mike, and he'll give you the exact figures on that. But you're going to probably need it stable. Yes, sir.
For the power, how many amps does it need?
It takes a 20 amp breaker, which is
20.
really low, and it's not going to come anywhere near that. There's a built-in safety factor, but that's incredibly low. But one thing about the power when you hook it up, just a little trick, is the size of the wire going to it, with the lower number being thicker wire. Your code in your city, county, and state is going to determine what size wire. I tell my customers, whatever they say the wire is for this, go 1 or 2 wires thicker, because you're just building the store, the walls are open, these walls are open, and I know that one day you're going to move up from this to this, which is going to take the next heavier wire or 2 wires heavier. So you run the heavy wire to this machine, you're just not utilizing it fully. But then when you switch up, you don't have to close your store down for a week, tear open the walls. It might cost you $75 more to run a heavier wire for that machine, but use this one.
So the bigger machine also 20 amp breaker.
No, it's a 40 amp breaker
40.
because it's almost double the size of everything. Yeah, the bigger the machine, the more amperage. But still, incredibly efficient. These are Copeland scroll compressors. It's a rotary engine. Instead of a piston engine like this, it's spinning around like that on our big machines, and they just sip electricity. I think they're getting hungry for this. After this, we're going to answer some more questions, and
Probably should let them do a little potty break or coffee break, snack break. Sorry, saying potty. You guys aren't children.
All right.
And then do the other one.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Now, we'll give you a 10-minute break, but not 11.
Has anybody had lavender in any frozen desserts or lavender cookies, lavender pastry scones?
It sounds very foo-foo, but
Yeah.
it's really good.
But, you know, some people might think it's potpourri in the mouth, but it's not. It's very refreshing. They're awfully quiet.
Right now they are. They've been pretty good. They've been
Yeah.
answering a lot of questions.
Yeah.
It's the Kahlua.
It's the Kahlua. It's mellowed them, yes.
We got that sugar all over me.
It's coming along.
It is,
Again,
it is.
higher the sugar content, the longer the freeze time. So that's what we expect it to do.
These could be made into such as molds or something.
I'm sorry, what?
Pops, such as your
Oh, yes.
sorbet and stuff, made into like such as ice cream pop.
So
Yes.
there's these molds here, and they have a little slot right here at the end that you can put in your stick after you've filled it up. Now with the smaller machines, if you have a dozen of these just sitting there, you can, take it along and just put it on there and just smoosh it down with your spatula. These larger machines, you can't do that with those. You would have to put it into a tub and then just hand pack it yourself. This is those like ice cream cake molds. This is by Mad Maggie, who sells them from Cold Molds. That's her company, COLDMOLDS, coldmolds.com. And I've actually used this one. I haven't tried the popsicle yet, but after you have put your ice cream or you layer it with a cake, ice cream cake, whichever, and after it's frozen, they just pop right back out. These are very easy to work with, and it really does make that perfect edge crease too. So definitely an option.
And they're really great at parties if you drink too much. Hello, my honey. Hello, my baby. You didn't think I'd do that, did you? Had to do something to wake you folks up.
It's coldmold.com.
Had you like experience much with like the frozen cakes or anything? Or
Say that again?
viscosity? Have you had much experience like viscosity on the frozen cakes or making them?
I don't think I
more
understand.
overrun, lighter, fluffier?
If it were me, I would probably run a super premium or a gelato because it's more dense and it'll be more richer and creamier when you go to cut into it. And plus, you can always make a bigger buck for that. So you can charge $15 for that little cake. You make the cake yourself, and then you make the ice cream yourself, pack it in there, decorate it real pretty, put $15 on it or $25 depending on your area. But I think a more denser ice cream would hold a lot better than a homemade fluffy.
Christi, the difference between ice cream and gelato is
Lower fat and a lower overrun.
on which?
The gelato.
And Italian flavorings. You're not going to find salted caramel or peanut butter and jelly as a gelato. This is one of the things I was going to bring up of what sells in America is gelato and ice cream. We'll get that to the questions answered. I like to sell cakes, you offer cakes. I think you can get a little bigger size, $20, $22 for this. The beauty of it is when you sell a pint, pints are great. I mean, we're getting $8, $9, $10 a pint. You'll always buy two because I can't come home and say, hey, Paula, look what I bought for myself, some mint chip. And she's going, where's mine? And so I'm going to buy 2 pints and I don't care what the cost is, it's what I want. The cakes are fun, and for the women who don't understand this, let me explain. This is a great thing for men, an ice cream cake, because you bring it home, costs you $22, you serve it up for dinner, and you're taking slices, and everybody loves it. And then it goes back in the freezer, and 11 o'clock at night, when everybody's already gone to bed, if you've got a pint of ice cream and you start eating a few spoonfuls, it's going to be noticed tomorrow. It's almost gone. But the pint, we can take off a 1/4 inch slice and no one's ever going to see it, right? See, I told you, no one's ever going to notice it. And then another 1/4 inch, and it'll last for about 4 days or 5 days, and all of a sudden your wife says, hey, where'd that go? Oh, honey, don't you remember? Of course you don't remember. Don't you remember you had some for dinner last night? I kind of passed on it. I was full. So it's a great, the man feels that he's really getting his money worth out of it.
Thanks for the idea.
You're welcome.
Nice, honest marriage you have,
Paula knows me. She knows
based on lies.
Oh, she's just as guilty.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So from sorbet, you can make the bars?
Could you put it into bars? Sure. It makes great popsicles.
So the thing about sorbet and Italian ice, does anybody know the difference? There isn't. It's the same thing. You go to Podunk, Oklahoma, they're going to call it Italian ice. You go to Beverly Hills, California, they're going to call it sorbet. We're using something fancy as lavender, so we're going to call it sorbet.
The ice cream popsicles were a big fad about 4 years ago. Everybody was doing them. They were very exotic and very, beautiful displays. And they just didn't sell all that well. They sold for a while, but it was a fad. It disappeared. With one big exception, and that's the Hispanic community, because those are known as paletas. and they are really beautiful fruits, and the bars are beautiful. And the Spanish community is going to be more used to seeing popsicles in a store than someone up in Boston, Massachusetts.
We're ready.
Okay, so it is a great market if you realize it's a targeted market.
Isn't that pretty?
Yes. Let me get you another
I got it right
smaller
here.
one. There you go.
Oh no, that's the bad one. You want this one. You gonna do the rest?
I think I'm going to put a little more in yours.
Probably. That's okay. And see how well those raspberries, oh dang it, I did it again. Okay. Became little tiny pieces of raspberries. It works, that's the one thing that is the best about our machines is no machine can do that. You'll void your warranty if you tried. And honestly, their dashers just can't handle doing this. You can always puree your fruits, but that's just taking an extra step that you don't need to because the Emery Thompson can do it.